Let me transition to the last subject before I go to break because it's something that's on my mind and it just needs to be said. You know, following the 2013-2014 season, a season in which the Golden State Warriors went 51-31 and ended up losing in the first round to the Los Angeles Clippers courtesy of a Game 7 loss to Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and those boys. Former NBA player and head coach Mark Jackson, broadcasters in the business. But Mark Jackson either doing it with them doing color by himself or he was doing it with Jeff Van Gundy. And just recently, this past offseason, ESPN and ABC decided to go in a different direction when an inordinate amount of cuts took place and people were laid off. He was one of those casualties. Well, he's made news for another reason. Because Mark Jackson was supposed to be calling games, that is, for the MSG networks. But it didn't happen. It was planned for Jackson to help fill in for Walt Clyde Frazier when he had nights off. And because that didn't transpire as people expected, there were numerous reports out that Mark Jackson had been fired. He had accepted the job, he was gonna be calling games for the New York Knicks, and then all of a sudden something must have happened, so Mark Jackson is not gonna be calling games in place of Walt Clyde Frazier on the New York Knicks. Well, that's according to reports. That's according to reporters and news publications. I'd rather hear from Mark Jackson himself at all times to the best of our ability, particularly when you've been in this business as long as I have. So, the first order of business is to say that Mark Jackson is not only a former colleague, he's a friend. I've known him for many years. I wasn't blessed and fortunate enough to know him when I was growing up in Hollis, Queens, New York, and he was right down the block near Murdoch Avenue and O'Connell Park, where he grew up just a few blocks away. I looked up to him. I was never the player that he was. I was never the basketball mind that he was. When I say that, every chance you get, you throw out rumors about him. And I'm not gonna even denigrate or sully his name by bringing up what those rumors have been over the years. I remember when he got fired from the Golden State Warriors. And there's not much shade we can throw on the Golden. But you got people who despised Mark Jackson, who would tell you Klay Thompson and Steph Curry may have never been what they ultimately became had it not been for Mark Jackson and the tutelage he provided and how it set the stage for Steve Kerr to piggyback off of and ultimately elevate not just the franchise, not just them, but himself to astronomical heights as a coach and a basketball mind in the game of basketball. And no shade on Steve Kerr whatsoever for another reason. The man was a champion before he got to Golden State. He was a champion as a player in Chicago. He was a champion as a player in San Antonio. And if Tom Thibodeau had listened to him, if Mike D'Antoni had listened to him and allowed Tom Thibodeau to come to Phoenix and be the defensive coordinator when Steve Kerr was running basketball operations in Phoenix, Phoenix might have won the title one year with Amari Stoudemire and the Matrix, Sean Marion and Steve Nash and all of those brothers. They might have done it, but it didn't happen. I say all of that to say ain't no problem, nobody's trying to throw any shade on Steve Kerr whatsoever, but there's something to be said about somebody, and that is what Mark Jackson did. For a lot of other people, it would have been enough to get another job. But for somehow, some way, for some reason, Mark Jackson gets ostracized. It really pisses me off. It really does. Because it's grotesquely unfair. This man, 98-66, his last 2 seasons coaching in Golden State, 2020. There's always some damn rumor that's coming out. Did it ever occur to some of you people out there? What if people like myself and others who covered the NBA for the last quarter did things that were unlawful, that harmed other human beings? And they've been on camera talking to y'all, and y'all have no idea about them, but we do. By we, I mean those of us who cover the league. I'm getting sick and damn tired. Every time Mark Jackson wants something or got something going on, None of those accusations are applicable to him. And yet somehow, some way, they want to get in the way of this man trying to earn an honest living. Where's your compassion? Where's your decency? He don't have a right to go out there and earn a living? Now let me be very, very clear. I'm talking about as a basketball coach. I work for ESPN. I was not happy when Mark Jackson was let go. I don't have any control over that. I think he's an outstanding analyst, but I also know Doc Rivers is one too. And I know Doris Burke is a Hall of Famer. She's sensational. And I love the job that J.J. Redick and Richard Jefferson are doing. And their promise is endless. Their the prospects are endless. They are special. And I want to state for the record, I miss Jeff Van Gundy.